year, a bill that would allow people to carry a concealed gun on school grounds gets shut down by lawmakers. Today, we learned a security guard who helped end a school shooting was armed. So what was the point of the bill in the first place?
NAACP stands for what?
Former Governor John Hickenlooper didn't exactly stick the landing with his answer to that question. Last year, a candidate for mayor messed up that answer too. 500 pounds is nothing to this 63-year-old. Meet the man chosen to represent our state at the World Powerlifting Championships. That's next. He helped stop a school shooting with a gun he was not supposed to have in that school. Shamsun Sundara was the security guard working at STEM School Highlands Ranch in May during a deadly school shooting there, the one that killed Kendra Castillo. Sundara helped disarm one of the suspected shooters, but he also fired his own gun at what turned out to be a plainclothes sheriff's deputy. He missed her with his shots, but they went through a classroom wall, injuring 2 students. Now, there's a law preventing the concealed carry of weapons at school, but he will not be charged. Our Marshall Zellinger looks into why and what it means for anyone else.
The bill is postponed indefinitely.
Democratic lawmakers just voted down a bill to allow someone to carry a concealed handgun at school, the 6th straight year this bill has died. But does it matter? Current law states a concealed carry permit does not authorize a person to carry a concealed handgun onto a public school. There are certain exceptions, but what happened at STEM Highlands Ranch in May is not one of them. The school had a contract with a private security company to have an unarmed guard. Yet today we learn that guard, Shamsun Sundara, will not be charged for having a gun at school because he used it within the law. El Paso and Teller County District Attorney Dan May investigated this part of the STEM case, and in a statement today he wrote, "Although it was illegal for him to have a gun on the premises, our investigation has determined that his actions were in compliance with applicable law. That applicable law is the use of physical force in defense of a person. So does it matter that lawmakers continue to kill a bill preventing someone from carrying a concealed gun at school if in this case the person doing it illegally wasn't charged?"
I'm not sure I'd say they're connected. DAs use their discretion all the time in these kinds of situations.
Democratic Representative Chris Kennedy chairs the committee that rejected allowing concealed carry in schools.
The message is still clear that you cannot carry a concealed weapon on a school campus. It's against the law.
I think people could definitely say that there's a conflicting message.
Christopher Jackson is an attorney who reviewed the laws for us and points out there's a nuance between illegal and being charged.
It could be black and white that there was a crime that was committed, but it's a separate question about whether a district attorney would actually charge somebody with that crime.
Just because one district attorney chooses not to file charges for something illegal does not mean another one will do the same. But a DA's discretion isn't really precedent. It would be different if a judge were to rule a certain way on a case, and then that could be cited as a defense in future cases, Jeremy.
Interesting, Marshall. And I can see how people can use this circumstance to use it as an argument for both and against guns in school. Thank you very much. We want to update you on 2 stories we have covered extensively here on Next. First, the handyman accused of causing an explosion at a multiplex in Denver's Baker neighborhood back in 2008 was found guilty today. Todd Perkins was convicted of attempted first-degree murder as well as 6 other charges. We've also talked at length on this show about bicycle safety. The crux of that has been the tragic death of cyclist Alexis Bounds. Today, the driver who hit her, David Anton, was sentenced to 200 hours of community service, and his license was suspended for a year. On Monday, former Governor John Hickenlooper appeared on Brother Jeff's Facebook live stream as he makes a run at Cory Gardner's Senate seat this year. We aired some of that interview on Monday, but originally missed this little exchange.
Well, I understand that you were at the NAACP gala. The NAACP. NAACP. NAACP stands for what? I don't know.
Tell them I would not do that to you. The American Advancement Culture.
That's it.
National Association for the Advancement of Culture.
Maisha, did he pull it through?
Yes.
He pulled it through.
Okay, yeah, now he didn't exactly nail it on his first try there, and it took him a few seconds to get it right. It's not the first time someone has tripped up trying to say what the NAACP stands for. Jamie Gillis, who ran for mayor, totally flubbed her response to a similar question last year. We went to Brother Jeff's studio today to talk about that question. He said it wasn't planned with Gillis, but now that it's out there, candidates should be ready for it.
Every candidate that comes in the free think zone, if they don't know the NAACP, they haven't been prepped. They're coming in flat-footed, and they would probably have a very difficult time talking about issues relative to the black community or the community at large as it relates to social justice. Does John Hickenlooper understand the NAACP more than, say, for example, a Jamie Gillis? I would say absolutely, because being a mayor, being a governor, being very attached to the black community locally and nationally, and then also being a member, his answer was a lot different in terms of context than Jamie Gillis. And so should Hickenlooper get some slack from that? Well, we're pretty clear he knows what the NAACP is, because at the end of the day, he did get the answer right.
So when we reached out to Hickenlooper's team to get a response about this whole interaction, they seemed kind of nervous about how we would report this exchange here on Next, even trying to suggest what parts of the clip we should use. So we're going to put a link to the full raw interview between them on the Next Facebook page, and you can check it out there right now. Lack of affordable housing is one of the leading causes of homelessness. So you gotta wonder why Denver, the city of Denver, has a $6 million contract in place, in part, to pay a company to clean up after homeless sweeps. Denver City Councilwoman Candy Tabaka tagged my friend Kyle Clark in this tweet. She implies the mayor's office is asking for $6 million to enforce the camping ban that was recently ruled unconstitutional by a judge. So is this tweet true? We found a $6 million contract was established in 2018. But when you read it, it is not for enforcement. It's for hazardous cleanup and for storage of blankets and tents and things like that. The amount the city pays the contractor is capped at $6 million for 3 years. The city says it's just wanting to ask the council to slightly amend the contract to pay the contractor a bit more for off-hour requests.
This contract, as I said, has been in place for a couple of years now, and as we devote resources to addressing and assisting our homeless population, we still have an obligation to respond to any public or environmental health concerns, whether it stems from an encampment or otherwise.
Candy Tabaka stands by her tweet, claiming it was part of a threat about public safety, or a threat about a public safety committee meeting. She claims the council had not seen the contract because it was not presented to them during that meeting.
And the contract itself wasn't included, which is very typical. City council members don't really have access to the contracts we're voting on unless you're asking and digging for them like we are. And we requested that contract and recognized that this has essentially been a slush fund for the city over the last couple of years to enforce the camping ban.
So while the tweet on its own is misleading, it does raise a valid question about city resourcing and homelessness. If the city of Denver can afford to commit to pay a cleanup contractor $6 million over 3 years, should the city be pumping more of that money into affordable housing? More housing, less homeless camps, less cleanup? Maybe. So far, the city has paid that contractor $619,000 since 2018, and police have resumed enforcing the camping ban, mainly with warnings. You'll remember voters overwhelmingly supported to keep the ban last year. May I make a recommendation? This is where we tell you about something, anything that is not ours, but is worth your time. Today, we want to point you to a CPR article that has issued a correction not only for themselves, but pretty much every local news outlet. This week, we told you about State Senator Brittany Peterson giving birth to a baby boy. We were among the local media members who reported that she made history, becoming the first state senator to have a baby while in office during the legislative session. As CPR points out, we were all wrong. They found out the first baby to be born during the session was in June of 1981. Then Denver Senator Barbara Holm had her son Tim. CPR interviewed Holm about giving birth during the session and having to work in a special session just weeks later. We have the link to that story on the next Facebook page.
Representative Jason Crow swings for the fences with a joke about Colorado baseball during the impeachment trial. 63 years young, and he can lift 3 of me.
I was doing squats today. I went up to 510 pounds.
We'll introduce you to the man chosen to represent Colorado at a powerlifting competition in South Africa.
The weekend is here and it looks fantastic if you like the 50s here in Denver or if you are searching for snow up in the high country. I have all of it. Our next storm system already pushing into the western slope of Colorado up to the high country as we head toward about 10, 11 o'clock this evening. And for the metro area, we only get clouds out of this storm. Temperatures tonight still comfortable in the upper 20s this evening for overnight lows across the eastern plains. 19 in Steamboat, 17 in Gunnison, and 12 for Alamosa. So again, late tonight, 10, 11 o'clock, the snow becomes a bit more widespread. Northern and central mountains getting in on the action, but it's a fast mover. By early tomorrow morning, most of the moisture moves out. Few lingering flurries possible throughout the day, so if you are up there on the slopes, you might find a few. Otherwise, by late tomorrow evening, our skies remain mostly clear and that storm system quickly moves out of the state. Right now, it looks like about 1 to 3 inches of additional accumulation as that weak system grazes Colorado. Temps tomorrow here in Denver looking pretty good. Back to the mid-50s we go. A mild, dry day with 60s in Lamar, 20s and 30s going up in the mountains. 7-day forecast gets even warmer on Sunday, close to 60. Secondary system rolls in Monday. Little rain, little snow possible here in Denver. A brief break Tuesday, and right now, Jeremy, it looks like, fingers crossed, next Wednesday we might find a little bit of snow around here.
Snow!
I know.
Snow, finally.
Finally.
All right, thank you, Danielle. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a tradition that's been going on for 75 years strong now. Steers enjoying afternoon tea with guests at the Brown Palace Hotel. This is the 75th year that 2 1,400-pound animals fresh out of the stocks have been hanging out with guests as they relax and have tea in the atrium at the historical hotel. It all started back in 1945 when a man named Daniel Thornton sold 2 bulls that year for $50,000 each. That was a lot of money back then. He celebrated his win by parading his successes through the halls of the Denver Hotel, and thus a tradition was born where the grand and reserve champion steers are brought to the Brown Palace. This event hasn't been perfect, though. In 1996, one of the steers got spooked as it was going into the hotel and took off through downtown Denver. Some of you may actually remember this. Cowboys were able to wrangle it about half an hour later. Today's impeachment trial update is Representative Jason Crow's attempt at what we think was a joke. Yesterday, Democratic New York Representative Hakeem Jeffries made a joke about issuing a subpoena to the Baseball Hall of Fame after he says someone asked him if he had heard the latest outrage.
And then he said to me, someone voted against Derek Jeter on his Hall of Fame ballot. Life is all about perspective. And I understand that as House managers, certainly we hope we can subpoena John Bolton, subpoena Mick Mulvaney, but perhaps we can all agree to subpoena the Baseball Hall of Fame to try to figure out who out of 397 individuals, one person, voted against Derek Jeter.
Well, it seems Crow was trying to ride the coattails of that smattering of laughter today. Crow, who was an impeachment manager for the Democrats, opened his portion of the proceedings with this.
I woke up this morning and walked to my local coffee shop where, unlike my esteemed colleague, Mr. Jeffries from New York, nobody complained to me about Colorado baseball. So I could only conclude that this is only a New York Yankees problem.
Oh, I heard one laugh in there. It's already tough to get national outlets to care about baseball here in Colorado. Who knows if that's going to help or not. Did you know there's a World Powerlifting Championship? Did you know Colorado will be represented there? And did you know Colorado's representative is 63 years old?
I've been doing this for over 47 years now. It's a long time.
We'll introduce you to the strongest 63-year-old man we've ever met. Next. Welcome back. If you work out at a gym in Aurora called Vasa Gym, chances are you know a guy named Carlos Clark. His words of encouragement, high fives, and booming laugh lifts everyone, his friends say. Now his friends at that gym want to pay it forward, while Carlos is in training to represent the U.S. on the world stage. Byron Reed has his story.
Sometimes it takes the right motivation to reach a personal goal in the gym.
And I came in here and I was a little nervous to start on the machines, and I looked over and saw a very strong man. I thought, well, he probably knows what he's doing. Oh.
Jessica Schaefer has been friends with Carlos Clark for the past 3 years, ever since he took the time to help.
So I helped her to do that. At least that's the way I remember it. She might remember it a little differently.
I was a stranger and I asked him for help. He had no problem stopping and helping. He does that for everyone.
I'm doing my warm-up.
Carlos is a powerlifter from Aurora.
There's a squat, deadlift, and bench press.
He's been invited to represent Colorado at the World Powerlifting Championships in South Africa after winning regional competitions in Costa Rica and Illinois.
That qualified me to be invited to the IPF, International Powerlifting Federation, which is probably the largest powerlifting federation on the planet.
Carlos will be lifting over 500 pounds.
510 pounds.
At an age when most are thinking about retirement.
I'm 63 years young. I've always been a natural lifter. I've not used PEDs or anything like that.
He's just a regular guy. He doesn't have sponsors. He doesn't have coaches and trainers. It's just him with pure grit coming in here and trying it.
Clark says he's grateful for all the support and inspiration.
I feel real fortunate.
From a friend, he decided to help out.
My efforts have been returned to me 100-fold, and I appreciate it.
For next,
he never quits, and that's why he's gotten to where he is.
That was heavy.
I'm Byron Reed.
I got to work on my squats. Today's good news took us months to track down. It's a story about a simple act of kindness from a stranger that made a rough day a little easier for someone, and it was well worth the wait. Next. All right, it's Friday, and on Fridays we like to share good news. Today's good news is a story we've been trying to track down for more than half a year. Cassidy tweeted us back in July saying she was having a hard day on the light rail ride home from work. A stranger handed her this note before he got off at his stop. It says, "I'm sorry for looking over your shoulder and reading your text. I do want to say that you are not alone. No matter how hard times may get, you will get through it. I believe in you. Keep your head up or cry. Either one is okay. Keep moving forward." How about that? Cassidy said in her tweet, "Thank you, stranger, on the F line to Ridgegate Parkway. I did cry. Then I took a deep breath and realized I'll be okay." You know, it just goes to show how you can touch a stranger with some really kind words or a nice written note. There you have it, everyone. It's Friday. We made it. Have a fantastic weekend. See you again on Monday.